What is it costing in terms of schools? What is it costing in terms of employment places? And what's it costing us personally? Because we're living through a time that I would argue is best described really as a transformation nation period. Change is going to be something that is going to be unparalleled, because we are each and every one of us going to have to change, and change in ways we didn't want to. We've signed up for debt that none of us really have yet understood. Last week in AIG, maybe CNN pumped it into most of our homes. Each and every one of us signed up for an awful lot of personal debt that day. But personal debt and personal obligation, personal responsibility, a new sense of what it means to be part of a small community, a new sense of what it's going to take to be successful, a new sense of what it's going to take to reinvent yourself, to be competitive, and to be on par, just to remain employable, at a time when a recession has created license for jobs to be eliminated. And I think that need to be redefined and re-engaged means people are either going to flick the on switch, they're going to flick the slow switch, or they're going to flick the off switch. And so the idea that people are going to have to reinvent themselves every year, every 2 years, means that a lot of us and a lot of people who've given up on being reschooled are going to have to put themselves back into self-education mode. And they're going to have to do it in real time, again, while they're driving 40 miles per hour faster down the interstate. And I think that's going to be all about thinking about who do you want to be and how are you going to do it at a time when the competitive set has gotten fiercer and fiercer and there are more and more obstacles working against you. We're going to also have to learn how to work a lot more collaboratively, because as we become more and more interdependent, and as we become more and more connected, and as there's more total convergence, we're going to have to get better and better at tapping group intelligence, because we are really at hope's edge. And if we don't learn how to tap into group intelligence, we run the risk that a great deal is going to fly right past us. There is an extraordinary amount of learning and knowledge and expertise, and also erroneous information out there. And we've got to actually learn how to search both actively and passively in order to make all of our experiences cumulative and learning experiences. And we need to figure out how social media is going to be able to be our ally and our asset, so that we're actually living our life in parallel universes, our face-to-face life, our personal lives, our working lives, our converged lives, and then our life in social media. And how do we take all that life together and really fuse it so that we have something on the other side that actually can be put to good and positive use, and so that we can be compiling content as we go. Because in our new lives as a narrowcaster or broadcaster, what are we compiling in terms of broadcast and print publication material that helps us to build our story and share this intelligence? And how are we going to really tap into the social media in order to be able to do that? I think that you start to look at this visual, which I guess isn't projecting particularly well, but you have all these tools of social media that are out there, the assets of which have hardly been calculated. Whether you're using any one of these tools, not particularly important, but what it's really all about is understanding that if you're switched on, there are a vast number of things out there that can really enable you to be top of your game, monitoring thousands of different data points in real time while you're doing your job, while you're living your life. And that's really the way people are sort of interpolating what's going on in the world while they're beginning to build a case. And that's really what it's going to take for a business to be competitive, for an individual to be competitive. That's the kind of strategic game that we're all playing into. And it's kind of into that environment that I think people are going to have to go in order to be able to reboot themselves, to stay really just at parity, let alone to play to win. Because I think there's going to be brand new rules of behavior. The competition's going to get stiffer. It's going to get nastier. It's also going to get nicer. I think it's going to be a real yin and yang again. I think there's going to be a lot of risks of the past, disclosure risks, risks of libel. There's going to be Sarbanes-Oxley. There's going to be all the kinds of things we've all had to deal with as working professionals. And yet there's going to be all kinds of new rules, and there's going to be new rules of engagement, because responsible behavior is going to oftentimes come down to don't be stupid, because it's all happening in real time. And the biggest rule may actually be don't be stupid, or would you want your grandmother to see that? And that may be the world that we're working into as people are dealing with what people are posting online, what people are showcasing online, what they're sharing through file sharing and picture swapping and everything else, with 4 or 5 generations kind of working under one roof, sharing one set of file servers, sharing some kind of data, with red and blue states working together, with multiple religious cultures coming together under one corporate roof, with people having to sort of figure out how to fuse into one organizational entity. And it's really going to be a desire for respect, personal respect, corporate respect, commercial respect, is going to be ultimately what's going to have to become the new obedience. And I would argue it's really that new obedience that's going to help us to figure out who's going to be in charge and what's going to be in charge. It's going to be a much more flat structure. I don't think job titles are going to survive this recession. I don't think a lot of the hierarchies we've known heretofore are going to survive this recession. I don't think a lot of the protocols we've known heretofore are going to survive this recession. What's going to survive is people's networks, people's relationships with themselves and with one another, and people's commitments to a better and more well future. So I think we'll go over to questions. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Marian. That's some harsh things to digest and some hopeful things as well. I get to keep my flat screen TV, and I've always liked tap water, so it should be in good shape. And this microphone is really driving me nuts. So let me, as I pointed out, we are casting this live, and we will have it available for recording. Happy to take questions. If you just show your hands, let us know who you are, and Devorah will bring over a microphone, and we'll get that so the folks that are listening in can hear questions. And let's start with question number 1. Anybody?
Hi, I'm just interested to know what helps you form your opinions as observations, conversations. I'm sure you cast a wide net. I'd like to know what goes into that.
The first thing is probably quantitative data. I have access to Porter Novelli Styles data, which would be an ongoing longitudinal study. It's many years old. It repeated year after year. It's US as well as international data set. Second would be pretty sophisticated clipping service that I've developed over the years based on clipping against keywords. So I'm, at any given time, probably working against 450 different keywords, looking for what journalists are saying against those keywords, looking for those kinds of patterns. Then I'm working against current event topics, so whatever's happening in the Google zeitgeist, I'm working against those topics. Then it will be any form of qualitative research I'm doing, so if it's, I'm going out to groups for clients, I'm going out to look at other people's ethnographic work for clients. What am I hearing really as outtake? And oftentimes I'll get onto something because somebody else will ask me a question and I'm not necessarily satisfied with my own answer. I mean, a lot of my work begins because I didn't like the answer I gave because it just seems either too superficial or it just didn't get me to where I think the world's going to go. But really data, the short answer is obviously is really data.
All right, another question, just show a hand and we'll get the microphone to you. Now this one seems to be working, so the folks up front are also engaged.
Garrett Lawrence with Remus. So I think people believe that they're strong at multitasking and they have a perception that's probably different than the reality. Curious to get your perspective on sort of the expectation that we're multitasking and what we're really doing.
Yeah, I think right now there's a perception that people are multitasking. What they've gotten to be good at is superficially delivering with less intimacy. And I think that where we are, what we're good is we're processing more paper, we're processing more data. We're not necessarily connecting with more people. I think there's less cylinders maybe firing and connecting. I'm not sure that multitasking is accommodating a lot of expertise right now. I think people are doing okay at it. It doesn't work when people are driving and using their BlackBerry. We're certainly seeing the local legislation come back against that. It doesn't really work when people are voting on legislation and twittering. It probably works when somebody's cooking soup and on the telephone. So I think the question is, you know, what can you be doing as a +1? And then what can you be doing as a +1+1? And I think that people have to figure that out for themselves in terms of how many activities can they ladder together before it becomes a free-for-all and nothing gets done.